So we're here tonight together to hear the story of this day. And we're going to hear in a minute or two as Jesus is called to account before the powers of this world, put on trial. We're going to listen, and this is what we're going to hear him say. For I was born for this, and for this I came into the world to testify to the truth. And Pilate, the representative of all the world's authority, will ask, what is truth? You have to wonder, how could suffering and death testify to truth? And if it does, what kind of truth could that possibly be telling? That question that Pilate asks is real. He's speaking for all of us. What is truth? Because none of the truths that we tell each other hold up, do they? But Jesus, from birth to death, Jesus is the truth that there is another way. Jesus is God's way, walking around in our midst. And Jesus is so different. Just by being, he reveals how empty our truths are. You know them. We know them. We've all said them or thought them. We've all agreed in one way or another to a world that is lived based on these sorts of truths. And honestly, we've all ended up on the short and sharp end of these truths, one time or another. Might makes right. Divide and conquer. You got to get while the getting is good, don't you? Or kiss up and punch down. That's a real winner. And to the winner go the spoils. Put up or shut up. The end justifies the means. God helps those who help themselves. Fortune favors the bold. If you can't beat them, join them. The one who dies with the most toys wins. Again and again, as humans, we organize ourselves on these kind of truths, and not only do we drive ourselves farther from God when we do that, farther from God's good desire for us and for all of creation, we drive ourselves away and we kill the truth incarnate. So listen to the story tonight. Listen. Listen for a trial that is just a masquerade of justice. When Jesus is brought and the question is, well, what accusation do you bring? The answer is, we wouldn't have arrested him if he wasn't a criminal. I don't know, maybe he fitted description. Listen for a system of occupying power that relies specifically on doing what we see Rome do in this story, using fear and rewards to keep a vulnerable population busy chewing on its own leg so that it's not whole and strong. Listen for a system that will trap you into turning into the thing you are supposed to recognize as evil. Listen to the chief priests who are tasked with keeping God at the pinnacle of the community's life, who are trying probably to be faithful or think they are. The chief priests walk into that trap and say, oh, we have no king but the emperor. Listen for a system of keeping order that doesn't care who it kills, that's perfectly willing to knowingly execute innocent people in order to maintain the status quo. Listen for crowds of people who loved Jesus as he came into the city, who shouted and screamed, and whose love lasts just as long as they think he's going to sock it to the Romans. And as soon as that shifts, that love sounds a lot more like self-interest. Listen for the words, release to us Barabbas. For communities that are rallied so easily to hate a scapegoat and accept a criminal. Listen for friends who smile and nod and walk alongside you as you teach about love, and whose first resort is to pull a sword and whack at a slave. Listen for followers who make promises of faithfulness and then literally sell you out, or deny you loudly in public, or just disappear. Jesus' suffering and death, Jesus' story in life and death shows us the truth, that our best versions of peace and justice, of power and order, of friendship and faithfulness, what we call love and religion and faith, that our best version of these truths come up empty again and again. Most of the time, those words and our versions serve as new carpet over the bloodstains that our last messy fight has left, don't they? Friends, crosses were used to terrify vulnerable people. These occupied people, just like in our world, in our country, in our culture, a noose hung in a public place has long been meant to threaten and to terrify and to point carefully at people who know just how vulnerable they are, just how easily justice and power and crowds run roughshod over innocent life. A cross is meant to terrify. But Jesus came to testify to the truth. And so with our human violence, our ways of power and control, our joke of justice and our fake faithlessness, we lifted him up on a cross. And we tried to take away by force what Jesus had, to take away those things we cannot create for ourselves, not with all the soldiers and police, not with all the trappings of religious and civil authority, not with all our beautiful words of persuasion and our best lies. We tried to bind the authority that Jesus walked around with, freeing people everywhere he went, freeing them from demons, freeing them from the domination of a world that told them they were nothing. We tried to take that power that Jesus carried, that power he used to give food to the hungry, to give sight to the blind. We tried to break the wholeness we saw in Jesus, wholeness that we saw mend broken hearts, mend the damage done by sin. In our story tonight, we hear how we tried to kill the life that we saw in Jesus, life that walked across water, that walked across the boundaries that we throw up, life that raised the dead. Listen tonight as we offer vinegar to the one who turned water into wine. A cross is meant to terrify. But Jesus came to testify to the truth. So when we lifted him up to take it all away, no. Jesus gave up his spirit. What he had could not be taken, but we call this Good Friday good because what he had was freely given. We were going to put an end to it, but Jesus, no. He finished his work. He bore witness to the truth all the way to, all the way through our petty ending. That big fat period we scribbled so intently. For this I was born, and for this I came into the world to testify to the truth. His living, his suffering, and his death are a testimony to the truth. Listen tonight for the truth. The truth that power is not for domination but service. The truth that violence can never create peace and killing cannot create or maintain justice. Listen for the truth that God is love, self-giving, not self-serving. Listen for the truth that death cannot bring an end to what Jesus has completed. Jesus, full of grace and truth, has broken open all the truths that we live in, and he has dwelt among us. And so we have seen that truth. We have seen the glory of the only Son of the Father. And we know that the tomb is not a period, but a semicolon, don't we? We know that the truth is out there on the loose now because Jesus testified to it all the way to and all the way through death. So listen now.